evening. We are reconvening after a closed session. And now we have no changes to our agenda this evening. Looking at the weeks ahead, next week on Wednesday, October 13th, we have our regularly scheduled meeting at 7:30. We will start our meeting with a presentation from the Parking Management Task Force. Our voting session next week includes second reading ordinance approving traffic calming for the 7900 block of Tacoma Avenue, as well as traffic calming for Auburn Avenue. Our work sessions next week are on council compensation and committee appointments. And then we have a meeting on Wednesday, October 20th. Our voting session that night will be a resolution regarding funding for Montgomery Housing Partnership, the Hillwood Manor Project, a resolution providing for appointments to boards and committees, a resolution providing for appointments to the Banking and Investment Task Force. Our work sessions that evening will be an update on election planning and options and legislative priorities. On Wednesday, October 27th, the City Council will not be meeting. We will then have our next meeting on Wednesday, November 3rd at 7:30. Tentatively, we have scheduled the first reading ordinance regarding City Council compensation and a work session on an update on the Public Safety Task Force review. Then on Wednesday, November 10th, we have tentatively scheduled our second reading ordinance on a council compensation, a first reading ordinance awarding a contract for compensation and pay equity study, and a first reading ordinance awarding a contract for organizational workforce needs and risk assessment study. Our work session that night is a presentation of draft redistricting maps. Then our next meeting is Wednesday, November 17th. We'll have a presentation of the FY 2021 audit, a presentation of the police pension plan actuarial evaluation. Our voting session that night will be a second reading ordinance awarding contract for the compensation and pay equity study, and the second reading ordinance awarding a contract for the organizational workforce needs and risk assessment services. We'll also have a resolution providing for the City Council's winter recess that evening. And then we won't meet on Wednesday, November 24th, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And we will have our meeting on December 1st, a special meeting it's a joint meeting with our D20 delegation, and that will begin at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, December 1st. And those are all our meetings upcoming for the rest of the fall. Now we have a proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas Columbus Day is observed as a federal holiday on the second Monday in October, and whereas the day recognizes the October 12th, 1492 landing of Christopher Columbus on an island in the Caribbean, making the European first in Americas. And whereas this contact began centuries of colonization on lands already settled by Native peoples and exploitation of America's resources. And whereas Indigenous Americans experienced conquest, enslavement, displacement, and disease, which decimated the population. And whereas Tacoma Park now sits on the ancestral homelands of the Nau-Choctaws, the Tahoxans, and the Piscataway peoples, and Indigenous people make their homes in this city today. And whereas the City Council recognized the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day by adopting Resolution 2017-39, reimagining Columbus Day as an opportunity to celebrate Indigenous heritage and resiliency. And whereas although it is a federal holiday, Columbus Day is not a holiday for City of Tacoma Park employees, and city government functions and meetings continue on their usual schedule. Whereas recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day serves as a reminder to reflect on the Native people, past and present, who have cared for this land over the millennia. Now, therefore, I, Kate Stewart, Mayor of the City of Tacoma Park, Maryland, on behalf of the City Council, staff, and residents hereby proclaim October 11th, 2021 as Indigenous Peoples Day in Tacoma Park to acknowledge and celebrate the culture and sacrifice of the first people on this land. And we will, as we did last year, and I think maybe Councilmember Kovar will say this during council comments, since he is helping coordinate this year, an event to mark Indigenous Peoples Day on October 9th this weekend. So more on that in a moment. We will now move to public comments. No one signed up for public comments on any voting items, so we'll move to public comments on general items. And our first commenter is Miss Mary Jane Matui.
For the opportunity to talk. I'm just really concerned about the fact that there are all these people with these houses selling for really high prices and people renovating them. And the next door has a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house. That would be great if the city bought it and work with Habitat or whomever and rent it out to people with special needs. It seems like you just act like we don't exist. You've come to my house, you've come to our meetings, and I appreciate it, but nothing has been done. Why are you giving housing to other people? The people with special needs, or I should say differences, we're human beings too, and we come in all different colors and sizes and sexes and so forth. And we're the most needy. If your brain is affected, I mean, heck, you're the most vulnerable people there are. And please, I mean, don't forget us, please. And somebody about a month ago, a woman from Independence Now came at the meeting and announced something that she was buying a house in Tacoma Park. It's not a house for us. I checked. I called Independence Now. She was buying a house. She was thinking of buying a house for herself personally. It wasn't for us. And thank you. And it's really can be really tough. And it's great that you're having these vans, mental health vans, or whatever you call them, Montgomery County. That's great. But what do you do long-term? We learn long-term help. You just can't talk to somebody for 24 hours. That's great. But what do you do with them? They just come back living on the street or whatever. Thank you very much. And you'll have a good evening.
Thank you, Huey. Next we have, is AJ Campbell with us, or are we going to Mr. Allen first?
I'm sorry, AJ is here, and for some reason,
We could do Mr. It looks like Mr.
Yeah,
Allen's all ready to go, so we could.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Allen, do you want to go?
Let me unmute. Greetings, council members. My name is Ken Allen. I'm from Ward 2, and I am representing Climate Action Coffee, which is an offshoot of the Tacoma Park mobilization. We're planning to appear regularly at these sessions to share our thoughts on our community regarding our climate emergency. Climate Action Coffee, CAC, focuses on local and regional climate action and education. We meet weekly on Zoom every Wednesday morning, 8 to 9:30. We have people from all wards, but Ward 6, and would encourage anyone interested from that or any other ward to join us. You can join us at tpmobilization.org/tally. Now for tonight's testimonial. Thanks to the organizing of Chesapeake Climate Action Network, CCAN, many invasive vines have been removed from trees in Tacoma Park. As the council knows, Tacoma Park's urban tree canopy is vital for providing shade, lowering energy costs, reducing stormwater runoff, and making Tacoma a vibrant, livable city. Perhaps less well known is that our canopy trees are a vital tool in addressing climate change. With all the threats to our urban forest, it seems we should do that one thing: remove invasive vines. That is relatively within our control. When I have participated in CCAN's work days, I have knocked on doors where almost every homeowner is delighted to have invasives removed for free. Some have even offered to pay me. All homeowners seem to sense, even if they don't know the details, that non-invasive vines are harmful to trees. Then on other Saturdays, CCAN organizes teams to go into parks owned by MNCPPC and get even more trees freed from vines. Recently, I was in Beckley with more than a dozen other volunteers. By now, the program has removed vines from over 2,000 trees in Tacoma Park. CCAN's efforts should be commended. CCAN is not the only volunteer group removing native plants. Just last Saturday, a group of citizens organized to pull weeds from Hefner Park. Beforehand, they met with Anna Misha Johns, the city gardener, to discuss exactly what should be done. Then on Saturday morning, 10 or so students pulled out 4 different kinds of invasive weeds. I want to commend Anna Misha John for taking the time to give direction to some citizens to approve one of our parks. We, the Climate Action Coffee, hope to organize citizens to go into other parks to remove vines. Possibly we could also put in some native plants. We encourage the city to work on educating homeowners, landscapers, and city staff on the benefits of removing non-native invasive vines and planting more natives. There are many local nurseries that sell natives. It would be great if this information could be spread via the Insider and the city newsletter. Non-native invasive removal and planting of native trees should also be considered in the public space management plan that's under review. Thank you for your time and for your willingness to address the climate emergency. Climate Action Coffee will be back next week to share more. Ken Allen on behalf of Climate Action Coffee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Appreciate it. Now we'll go to AJ Campbell.
Alrighty, my name is AJ Campbell. I live in Ward 5 on Roanoke, and tonight I'm here to make an argument for Tacoma Park to take a greater interest in our condo buildings. We'll call this Part 5. I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but our rental buildings are selling at an alarming rate. It's my belief that this is because of rent stabilization and lack of investment. These buildings are much more likely to be converted to condos than to remain rentals. The numbers just don't add up. The purchase price is too high for the rents received, and the income would not cover the high mortgage and purchase price. One possible new outcome for the new owners is to encourage the current renters to vacate, and we know they have some very interesting ways of doing that in order to convert to condos or convert to some kind of private residence situation. But in any way, we would be losing rentals. So if you notice, back in August, 256 Manor Circle sold for $1 million. $1 million. There is no combination of rent stabilized money that is going to make that work as anything else but a condo building or a private home. Back in March, 704 Kennebec sold for $665. In December, 2 buildings sold, 7805 Lockney and 7903 Lockney. And then 908 Davis sold in last November for about $500,000. A lot of these places have already appreciated because the bump in the housing market. So they're even under more pressure now. A lot of them will refinance, take out some of that equity and try to move on to a new place or to move on to a different, pay down some of that conversion debt. Here in Ward 5, 8201 Houston and 8305 Roanoke are on sale, and they're both in the $575 price range. There is no chance that they can make that rent work on that kind of mortgage. So there's really nowhere else to go. So, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what's actually going to happen, but these are not great indications for a healthy rental market. And I would imagine that when and if the purple line ever manages to sort itself out, that's going to put even more pressure up here on the rental market in Ward 5. So I think Tacoma Park needs to sort of look at how we've been managing the housing top to bottom, start over, and really see how we can better affect change, because we are going to lose our rental market, and we're going to have condos that people can't live in, and we don't want to have that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think those are all our public comments for this evening. So we'll move to council comments. Any council comments tonight? And I don't know, I know people are having problems with the hand raising before, so let me know if that's still an issue. And I see Councilmember Smith has his hand up.
First, I'd like to start with thanking Mr. Fox and the city staff on putting together a very successful Tacoma Festival over the weekend. That was an incredible event, even though we are still in a pandemic. I would be interested to know how many people, if they can kind of get an estimate, actually came out to see us. But kudos to you and the staff. It was well done, Mr. Fox. Regarding Ms. Campbell's comments, I would ask to see if we can get the staff to dig into what's going on with the multifamily housing and have Mr. Cross give us a presentation to see what's going on and recommendations how the council can potentially intercede. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cox.
Thank you. Just a couple of relatively quick notes. First of all, I want to remind everyone, in addition to getting your COVID shots, please get a flu shot. I just got mine today. It's easy to do and it's important. It sounds like they are expecting the potential for a bad flu season. So please do make sure that you do that. I had the opportunity last night to take part in the first of the public space management plan community workshops. And so I really want to give a big shout out and thanks to Mr. Cross and Ms. Grigsby and Mr. Friedman and everyone else who organized that. It was a great event and really was interesting to hear from the residents who were there. And I think it was fun to kind of participate in the kind of brainstorming about what factors are most important in selecting projects and what we want to prioritize. So really encourage folks to come out to the remaining workshops on that. And I'm looking forward to the data and input that we hear kind of in aggregate from that as well. This is the last week for committee applications. If you are interested in being a part of a committee or board, tomorrow is the deadline. So I know many of us have been out talking with residents and trying to share information. So if you're listening tonight, please do check out the information on the website. There are a number of different committees and boards that you can serve on, and would love to have people participate in those and share your views and experience with us. And then finally, one of the things I've heard from a number of residents recently was about the value of leaving your leaves on the ground. This is something as we're going into fall that is a good reminder that those do provide important habitat and help refresh the soil and serve a lot of other important environmental purposes. So as you're doing cleanup in your yard this fall, please do consider leaving those or composting or mulching them as well. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Great. Councilman Sears.
Good evening, everyone. I want to echo Councilmember Smith in my thanks to all of those who worked on the Tacoma Street Fest. It was a great way to spend a surprisingly warm Sunday. To have a chance to not only get to go to all of the different vendors and try some good food, but also a chance to interact with so many of our city staff that were manning the city tables, from the rec staff, the HCD staff that was informing folks about master plan development, and the library staff out there trying to get folks signed up for library cards. It was really an all hands on deck experience. And I just want to, again, thank the organizers, but also all of the city staff who just, who came out on Sunday and gave up their time. Another quick reminder, just want to remind everyone about the Crossroads Farmers Market, still going strong. Encourage people to come out and get some wonderful fruits and vegetables on Wednesday. Also want to give a quick shout out to our HCD staff, as well as our public works staff. I think sometimes people don't realize the massive nature of the Hillwood Manor Apartments renovation. It's a complete gut job, and so there's a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes in terms of engineering and things like that that's happening. And I do want to thank Daryl's team as well as Mr. Cross for all of the kind of rallying of all of the different pieces to keep that project moving forward. So I just want to thank you all for that. And I think that is it. Oh, no, committees. Come on, Ward 6. We need some more folks to sign up for committees. So definitely take a look at all of the different opportunities that are available, and please consider signing up to join one of our numerous boards and committees. And that's all I have. Thanks so much.
Great. Councilman Devala.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Ditto on the Street Fest. Ditto on the leaving your leaves. And committees, yes. And so as I did last week, just one more time for those of you who are still thinking about it out there in Ward 2, the groups we're looking for help with: Board of Elections, pretty important; Committee on Landlord Tenant Affairs, if you're a tenant, you know what we mean; the Ethics Commission, the Tree Commission, Arts and Humanities, Emergency Preparedness, Grants Review, the Green Team, and Recreation and Community Engagement Committees. And last but not least, and a separate application link, a short-term task force on implementing the policy on sustainable city banking and investments. I also want to remind folks that today is Energy Efficiency Day. And so Ace Hardware might be closed already, but it's not too late tomorrow to go out and do one simple thing: get a power strip for some of those phantom lights that are on all night that don't need to be. Check your insulation level through your plug. There's a lot of simple, and clean your lint filter. A lot of simple things you can do that don't cost a lot of money to mark the day. And two more. If you live in the Long Branch Sligo neighborhood, there's a neighborhood association meeting this Sunday, 4 to 5:30 at 70503 Flower Avenue. See you there. And last but not least, just to let the rest of the council know, I did have a brief meeting with HCD Director Alex Cross about property tax credits and rebates. Try to get that project going again now that we're through the immediate crunch of the pandemic. So stay tuned on that one. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Great, thank you. The Council Member Kovar.
Thank you, Mayor. My hand raising seems to be working now. First, yes, the street festival was great. Thanks to the city staff and also to the folks at the Old Tacoma Business Association who were so involved in it as well. We got fortunate with the great weather, and I thought it really went well. So thanks to everybody who was involved in that. This Saturday, the mayor mentioned one of them. There are actually 3 events on Saturday the 9th that folks may be interested in. There's some overlap, so it may not be possible for people who are interested to do them all, but I'll just mention them since I'm on to Saturday at this point. So Saturday the 9th at 2 p.m. at the Hefner Rec Center is the memorial to our longtime peace advocate, Pat Loveless, who sadly passed away earlier in the year. And that's at the Hefner Rec Center at 2 p.m. And then at 3 p.m., this is the Indigenous Peoples Day celebration that the mayor referred to. And that's at Sligo Creek Neighborhood Park, which is on Sligo Creek Parkway, where Heather Lane comes in, and there's a small parking area there. And the information is on the city website on that. And then from 4 to 7 p.m. is the Tacoma Foundation's Beer Fest, and that's did not happen last year. It's now starting up again this year. This time that's taking place on 4th Street over in Washington, D.C., just on the other side of the metro, in front of the Tacoma Station restaurant in the sidewalk and kind of their own streetery area over there. So that's from 4 to 7 p.m. And if you attend, you can also support the Tacoma Foundation. Look online for that because sometimes the tickets are limited. And then I did want to mention one other thing that we got a notice about. Historic Tacoma, and they're located, I think people know their brick and mortar location is over on Carroll Avenue across the street, and they've now got their Historic Tacoma Reading Room open to the starting on October 17th. And it's 1 to 4 p.m. This is limited initially anyway, 1 to 4 p.m. on the first and third Sundays in each month, but people will have the ability then to come in as members of the public and look through some of the archives, and there will be members of the organization there who can assist you. So if you want to look at I don't know, old council agendas, old newsletters, Tacoma Voices, all kinds of things. Some of that material has now been curated, and I think more will continue to be so. That might be of interest. So again, that's the first and third Sundays of each month from 1 to 4 p.m. starting October 17th. Thank you.
Councilmember Siemens.
I want to thank you, Mayor, and all my colleagues, so that I have nothing left to say. Everyone, remember, we have committee and commission vacancies. Ward 4 needs more representation, so please get your applications in. Call me if you have any questions at 240-793-5108. And also hope to see you there at the official peace delegate, Pat Lovelace's memorial service this weekend. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to add my thanks to everyone with the street festival, it was great to see people out there and get to connect with folks after so long. I just really want to thank Laura and Kate of Old Town Business Association. They did a terrific job. And I think I mentioned this to Laura. I think everyone pretty much liked keeping it on one side of the street rather than both. So hopefully we'll do that in the future. Two other things as we're considering the ARPA funds for the city manager. One was the woman who does Chalk Riot, the chalking in the streets that Samira Cook Gaines, who had been our economic development manager, had first connected her with the city, and she did a number of chalkings around the city, particularly helping our businesses in the Crossroads area. And she was at, and since then she's done things in Silver Spring, and now she's doing a ton in the District of Columbia. And she stopped by and said hi to me at the street festival on Sunday and said, the work that we were able to give her and the small grant that we were able to provide to Chalk Riot at the very early days of COVID-19 made all the difference in the world to her business and to keep them going. And she just wanted to say thank you so much to the city for their help very early on. And so I just thought that was really nice to hear that. On such the not nice news, I got a call today from a woman, not a city resident, but who uses the public storage unit over on Holton Lane. And they've raised their prices from $165 to $210. Just pretty steep prices. And it's just to say that as we're thinking about the needs, I know we have in place plans for evictions, for delinquencies and rents we're looking at, but this is another cost that people have in terms of public storage as families are moving and other things. And, you know, places like our local public storage unit are increasing their rates so much in one jump. It's important as we're like just thinking about all the things that people are facing right now. So I just wanted to share that with staff about that and the conversation I had with someone today. I think that is all for me, and I will turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Just a few updates I have. The first, I'd just like to just take time, as already been stated, want to thank staff. We have a dynamic staff here at the City of Tacoma Park, and they go above and beyond. And they really stretch the resources, the limited resources we do have in this city to be able to provide great service to the community. So I want to thank staff. And there's a few staff members I just want to call out and just recognize Sergeant Thomas Black in the police department. He received the Maryland Police and Correctional Training Commission Instructor of the Year Award. Sergeant Black was recognized for overseeing our Department of Firearms program. So congratulations, Sergeant Black. Great job as an Instructor of the Year for the state of Maryland. Also want to thank Deputy City Manager Jessica Clark Jessica has been doing a great job really convening members in the community, businesses with our clinics, vaccination and flu clinics. And we're constantly looking for other partners to continue it, keep it going. And we just continue to ask people to get your vaccination, get your booster, get your flu shot. And we're going to do our part to assist in that. The other items that I have, Councilmember Costick referenced it, I believe, earlier, and a couple others about the community open space public workshops. There are 3 more workshops coming up. Next week on the 16th, there's 2, one at 10 a.m., and that's going to be at the Sligo Creek Houston Ave Park. And then the second one on that day is going to be at 1 p.m. and it's going to be at the Recreation Center. And then the last one that we're going to have is going to be on the 23rd at Essex House on Maple Ave, and that's going to be at 10 a.m. The other updates that I had this evening, it's already been discussed about the Indigenous Peoples Day, Saturday, October 9th, this weekend, 3 to 4 p.m., and it's going to be at Sligo Creek North Neighborhood Park. And then my second to last updates are October is Breast Cancer Awareness as well as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And you probably will see around the city that there's pink badges that will be placed on police vehicles and cruisers during the month of October to stand in solidarity. There's events recognizing both awareness initiatives throughout the city and community, and ask people please partake and join and support those. And then the last item, ARPA, staff is continuing to have workshops, continue to receive feedback from members in the community, and discuss how we put the framework together to be able to recommend and have a robust dialogue with members of council and the mayor. And one of the items with the compliance and reporting, I just want to share that the deadline has been extended for non-entitlement units, communities under 50,000, like Tacoma Park. Our now new date is April 30th. So we need to be in compliant by April 30th, 2022. We've had ongoing interviews with the ARPA manager recruitment, a lot of great candidates, and that process is progressing very well, and we're hope to get someone on board very, very soon. And the last item, I will leave it. I do have our good friend Director Cross with us again this evening. Director Cross, do you have any updates?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Really quickly, I have 2 updates on the ARPA spend that is an HCD. First, on addiction prevention, while we continue to monitor and work with our community partners, no additional funds have been expended since the last council meeting, which was last Wednesday. To date, 21 households have been assisted and $68,050 have been expended. Like I said last week, the majority of households helped are in Ward 4, with households in wards 2, 5, and 6 also receiving assistance. On the food insecurity RFP, I can report that the RFP will be released this coming Monday, October 11th, and responses will be due 1 month from that date. We're excited to get the project moving forward to ensure our food insecure residents can get the resources and support that they need. And that is my updates.
With that, Madam Mayor and Council, that concludes the city manager's comments this evening.
Okay, can we ask questions?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Cross, you were part of an email thread, I think it was last week, regarding someone that was potentially facing eviction on Roanoke. Were you able to stop that eviction or help in any way, either paying directly to the landlord and making sure we keep that person housed or that family housed?
So the housing division reached out to those residents to provide assistance, offer any help we can provide. However, the residents have not returned our outreach, but the housing division is monitoring it and make sure that we reach out again.
Can we go directly to the landlord rather than working through the tenant? Is that a possibility with our program?
For sure. Yeah, we reach out to whoever we need to get the assistance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gross. Mr. Fox, I appreciate the fact that you're doing these open space meetings in the community. Just want to know if you have had the opportunity to send out flyers or some more direct type of solicitation to residents in those areas to make sure that they can participate.
I know there's been some outreach. I can't say definitively tonight, Councilmember Smith, but I can follow up with you on what we have done, unless Director Cross, you have an update on that?
Sure. Yeah. So we have been, our staff has been going out in the community and flyering at some of the apartment buildings. And we are increasing our outreach this week. We're going to be heading up to Mega Mart to provide them with information and flyer in the Ward 6 area. We've been pushing our meetings out on social media. Thank you all for your assistance as well. Last night was, I thought, well attended. I think we had almost 12 people, and it was great to hear folks hear their priorities and what they think is important in public space. So we'll continue to push it. We'll continue to get the word out. We hope to see all of you there in the coming meetings.
Thank you. I'll be there.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, and then moving on, Councilmember Kovar, I see your hand up, but I'm thinking that's old. Okay. Thank you, Director Cross, and we'll move on now to our voting items. Our first voting item is the second reading ordinance for FY22 Budget Amendment 2. There were no changes from the first reading ordinance. So I ask if someone would move the ordinance. Councilman seriously moved or stretched. Councilman Costick, second. Any comments or questions about the ordinance on the budget amendment? Seeing none, will the clerk call the vote?
Councilmember Kovar,
Aye.
Councilmember Dabala,
Yes.
Councilmember Costick,
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Searcy,
Aye.
and Mayor Stewart.
Yes. All right, next we have the second reading ordinance designating Juneteenth as an annual day of remembrance and a paid city holiday. And there was no changes from the first reading. Do I have a motion to move this?
So moved.
Councilmember Smith and then Councilman Searcy second. Any questions or comments?
Will we be able to print out this ordinance in a future newsletter from the city?
Yes, we'll make sure that's in the newsletter and work for our communication staff.
In its entirety. It was well said. Thank you.
And one other question, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Fox, this came up previously, but can you explain what happens for frontline workers who can't take advantage of the new holiday?
Yes, Councilmember Kovar. So within this ordinance, once council formally passes it and adopts it this evening, for employees who are essential workers, police, public works, and others who are designated essential, they will be receiving a deferred holiday, meaning that they had to work on the actual day of Juneteenth, but they will be allowed to tack on another day sometime in the future, and it'll be a deferred bank that they will be able to use for vacation or otherwise.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, will the clerk call the vote?
Councilmember Kovar,
Aye.
Councilmember Dabala,
Yes.
Councilmember Costick,
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Searcy,
Aye.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes. All right. Next, we have, I'm confused, a little slow. Next, we have our traffic calming. The first is the first reading ordinance approving traffic calming for the 7900 block of Tacoma Avenue. We had this presentation last week. Would someone like to move the ordinance? Councilmember Kovar moved. Do I have a second? Councilwoman Costick, second. Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, will the clerk call the vote?
Councilmember Kovar,
Aye.
Councilmember DeBala,
Yes.
Councilmember Costick,
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Searcy,
Aye.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes. Next, we have the first reading ordinance approving traffic calming for Auburn Avenue. Would someone like to move that? Councilwoman DeBala moved. Do I have a second? Councilman Searcy, second. Any questions or comments? Councilman DeBala?
Yes, I just want to say briefly that I appreciate the conversation last week about citywide, how we set up the process for these things and how we evaluate traffic and speed issues in general. That said, I think that this is an important thing to do right now. And the vast majority of residents on the street think that it's very necessary and very appropriate. So I hope that you all will vote for it. Thank you.
Great. I'll ask the clerk to call the vote.
Councilmember Kovar, Councilmember DeBala,
Yes.
Councilmember Costick,
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Searcy,
Aye.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes. All right. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Braithwaite, for being available for questions and joining us tonight. Next, we have our work sessions, discussion of committee member selection and appointment process. And I think I'm turning this over to Councilman Costick, DeBala, Searcy. Which one? All three?
Well, I think they were splitting it.
Okay.
And there'll, if I can find them, there will be just a couple of slides.
Would you like me to pull them up, Councilmember DeBala?
Please. It would
Okay.
be so much quicker.
No worries.
While you're doing that, let's just refresh. So in June, we extended existing committee appointments to October 15th to allow, which is coming up, to allow time for the code changes to be made and to discuss and implement improvements to the city system of committees overall. And also to allow us to take a different approach to recruiting and appointing members as a group, not one at a time throughout the year. So we are thinking that this is the first of every 6 months, a process to bring on new members to committees, and that will allow for orientation and training and for looking at committees as a balance of people, a group of people, not just individual skills. So here we are. Over the past couple of months, the city has employed multiple outreach methods, such as social media, events, being present at events such as the Street Fest, posters in multifamily buildings, and targeted promotion to different groups. And I read aloud before the list of groups that we want to make appointments for. Are the slides up? I can't see my notes and the pictures.
Yes, it is showing that I'm sharing my screen. Can others confirm if you can see the
Yeah,
slide?
there we go. So go ahead to the first slide, which I think is what I all just said. So just to remind you, this is the groups that we are looking for. So the boards and commissions, both appointments and reappointments, people who want to return. So Board of Elections, Landlord Tenant Affairs, Ethics, Tree Commission, the Short-Term Task Force on Sustainable Investments, and for standing advisory committees, to your appointments to Arts and Humanities, Emergency Preparedness, Grants Review, Green Team, Recreation, and then Community Engagement. Next slide, please. So I think this is where Councilmember Costick comes in.
Yes, so we, as this subgroup, are recommending that there is a subgroup. It does not have to be the three of us, but there is a subgroup from the council that works with city staff in the coming week to review the applications that we have gotten using a common set of guidelines, and then make recommendations on appointments to the full council for the council to review at our work session next week. And also consider the best approach if there are not enough suitable applications for a particular committee. So that subgroup would flag any issues of lack of applications, and then make a recommendation to the full council if there's a committee that is in need of further applications, and kind of make a recommendation on whether we want to do some additional recruiting or wait 6 months, or how we should best approach that. And then finally, we have discussed previously this idea of potentially having a council liaison for each committee. So a member of the council assigned to a committee to just sort of be someone who is a point of contact and sort of keeping up regularly on what's happening within that committee. We haven't really come up with a full process for that. So one of the things we thought might be useful would be for the subgroup of the council that is planning on working separate from this on kind of the procedures that the council is using, and any updates to those. The mayor mentioned this subgroup last week at our meeting, that perhaps that subgroup could also be looking a little more into how that process might work as well. And then also, as the subgroup is going through the process, using this common set of guidelines, perhaps also talking with the assigned staff liaisons for the committees as well, and just kind of touching base with them, particularly if there are any questions about number of people who've applied or other things as well. So I will turn it over, I think, to the next slide to Councilmember Searcy.
Great. So one of the additional things that we talked about was what would be the possible selection guidelines, and what is it that we're looking for in terms of who we ultimately select for the committees. And this structure that I'm going to talk a little bit about is pretty similar to what was used for the Public Safety Task Force. And I do think that it worked in order to kind of help bring some diversity to the group. So one of the things is residency and other individual committee requirements. So for example, we have some committees that allow external folks, people who are non-residents to participate. Others require there to be residents to participate. So that's one thing that we definitely want to be mindful of as we're proposing who to select for the committees. An expression of interest. Why are you interested in joining this committee or board? Technical expertise or lived experience. And so if there's a way for us to kind of gauge whether or not someone has professional expertise that's relevant for the board or committee, or whether or not their lived experience and that contribution would really be helpful to kind of round out the full representation of the committee or of the group is important. Organization and committee affiliation. So this is one where, one of the big things that we are trying to do is make sure that we're able to spread the word. So it's important to make sure that, there are folks that are on our committees and our boards that are connected in the community in a way that might help with spreading the message around what the committee or group is working on and getting that resident participation. That's an important piece. Diversity and inclusion. So one of the things we wanted to make sure is a priority is making sure that our committees and the demographic makeup of our committees mirror that of our community. So, looking at age, race, ethnicity, gender, as well as ward diversity is something that we want to definitely make sure that we have at the forefront of our minds as we're reviewing applications. As well as, again, overall composition of the group. So we want to make sure that there's a balance in terms of skills, lived experience, but we also want to make sure that there's teamwork and that we have different perspectives that are available. So again, the goal is to try to make sure that we have a diverse group of people that collectively can provide the direction that we're asking for the committee or the board to and fulfill their purpose. So am I doing the next steps? I'm so sorry. I can do it. Excellent. I never know which slide is mine, so I apologize. So in terms of next steps, our hope is to have a couple of, have a conversation with you all about some of the things that were outlined in this presentation. But the big thing is making appointments this month. So we want to make sure that we're kind of getting those applications up and kind of able to review in order to make the appointments. We definitely want to consider council liaisons as to the committee. So as Councilmember Kostick mentioned, one of the things that we'd heard from prior committee and board members is that, that connection with the council is important. And we talked previously about a council liaison to kind of match up and have that connection of the council with the committees to kind of make sure that there's momentum there. Work with the committees on the minor code changes as needed. We had lots of conversations about code changes, and through those conversations with the city attorney, there's definitely a couple of places where there may need to be some tweaks to the code. And so we'll need to work with committees on that going forward. Another big thing is the annual review and feedback on committee charges and tasks. We had talked previously about trying to incorporate that component as part of our annual priority setting that happens with the council typically in January. So, how can we make sure that when we come together to talk about council priorities, we're also taking a look at what our committees are doing and provide feedback to them and specifically as they align with the priorities that we establish. And then also there's other discussions about code changes that may need to happen. So for example, we talked about the temporary task force that is being set up to kind of look at sustainability and funding and aspects of nuclear-free code. So as that committee kind of gets up and running, there's likely to be additional code changes that will need to happen as a result of any recommendations that they develop. And so that's something that we need to keep in mind as well. So I think I've covered everything in terms of next steps. But I'll pause and defer to my colleagues to see if there's anything that we want to make sure that we circle back and to have a deeper discussion about.
I think that's good. So the questions for tonight are, does this process for reviewing and identifying potential appointments, the little subgroup make sense? Who wants to be on it? And not necessarily to talk about the liaisons tonight, but to say that would, maybe the subgroup would have a suggestion on whether that's how we would approach that.
Great. Councilmember Kovar.
I guess the one question is, and maybe you explain how this would work, and I'm sorry if I missed it, on the point of what to do if the appointments under consideration aren't enough or diverse enough or otherwise match the needs of the committee. Are we saying now how we would do that, or the idea is that this separate subgroup would help determine that?
Our sense was that the subgroup would kind of identify cases where that might be an issue and then bring that to the full council next week for further consideration.
Well, I guess the next question would be, are there volunteers to review the applications? And when did we say the deadline was? Because we're still receiving applications until
Tomorrow. With the possible exception of the Sustainable Banking Task Force, because the link for that was just posted today. We'll let the city clerk comment on that point.
Yes, 2 points. One, the newsletter said the deadline was the 8th. So what I would
Sorry.
suggest that, yeah, so the newsletter differed from other outreach. So my suggestion would be to accept applications through Friday.
Going with the
So,
eighth.
but I hope everybody gets them in tomorrow anyway. The other, the deadline for the task force is October 15th, is the date we've been advertising for the, to get applications for the task force.
Okay,
Great. Thank you for clearing that up.
thank you. So Councilman DeBall.
No, no more.
All right, so I guess we'll do it this way. One, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns regarding the process of having a subgroup of 3 council members move forward and do the first review of the applications, given the criteria that has been outlined, and then come back to council with a recommendation? Does that, as has been laid out by the subcommittee, does that all work for everybody? Great, okay, we will do that. All right, next we need the subcommittee. Who will volunteer? And we all don't have to jump at once, but perhaps, not to put anybody on the spot, if it would be great, and again, not to put Councilman DeBala, Caustic, or Searcy on the spot, if at least one of you could still be part of this process because of just how in-depth you've all been in terms of thinking through all the changes and other things. I think it would be, but we know you've done a huge amount of work, so we very much appreciate that. But if there is one, at least one of you that would be willing to do it, that would be great. So how about we say this, if you are available and it is a bit of work, quickly, probably over this weekend and early next weekend, to lend a hand, why don't you send your name to the city clerk, and by Friday morning, if you could, and we'll see if we get enough, at least 3 of us, to volunteer. How's that sound? Great. All right. I can't think of anything else. Is there anything else we need to talk about regarding this?
I personally would really appreciate it if all the council members made one last push, regardless of what the numbers look like for your particular board at this moment. Because really the whole point of this is to have as many people engaged as possible. The other point I would make is that it is possible for a resident to put a first and second choice. So if someone, and I know from emails today that there are Ward 2 residents who are like, this team, that team, you can pick 2. And that would just be great, because then it gives the subgroup more flexibility to make sure that the groups work together and not just as individuals who like a particular topic.
Yeah, I also want to add that City TV did some great interviews with some of the former/current committee members, and that's a great resource that we can share with people, and also for people considering joining committees. Please do take a look at those.
Great. All right, I think this was a record of less than an hour for our official meeting. I will say we are adjourned. And we will be back again next week. Lots happening this weekend. So please enjoy. Hopefully the weather will be good for many of the events. So have a good week, and thank you all for your work.